Always dream big and don't let anyone limit your dreams because the possibilities are endless. That is a quote by Coco Gauff. And today, my guest, Andrew Hiorth, has a lot to share. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. Before we get started, I want you to remember to go to lucydumascoaching.com to check out what I'm up to or book a quick chat. And I'm on YouTube, so I'd love if you'd subscribe over there. And of course, I'm on all the other platforms that you love. So and sharing is caring. All right, so let me tell you about this amazing guest. Andrew is a business leader and creative visionary who built a multi seven-figure photography brand called FABLE Studios. He has a team of 20 professionals. Wow. And the specialty is boudoir. He has over 15 years as a producer, director, photographer, and he does fine art, boudoir, personal branding, commercial, and fashion. He has received the PPA Diamond Award, Photographer of the Year many times, and he's in Canada, so Team Canada at the World Cup, he got to represent Canada. And he also speaks, teaches about sales strategy, and does business coaching because he wants photographers and creative entrepreneurs to scale with purpose and profit. I like that. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thanks for having me, Lucy. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. So I like to know how the heck you got started in this photography world. In a nutshell, if you can, just want to know,
Yeah,
everybody starts somewhere. So what's your deal?
yeah. I was always the shutterbug in my group of friends. I was never trained classically in photography. I was always the one back in the day with a point and shoot camera, and it was just something I love to do and love to play with. And then it wasn't until after spending so much time with my wedding photographer that I saw, Lightroom and what it could do. And I was just so fascinated by it. And then I just got sucked in to, being an assistant and a second shooter for him.
Mm,
And sure enough, I just said, let's check this out. Let's look at doing this as a career.
I love it. Let's do the darn thing. I forgot to
Yeah.
mention he's in Ontario, uh, up there in the Canada land. So we're on
Yep.
opposite sides of the continent. Okay, so this was how many years ago that you said let's go for it?
13,
13.
13 years ago. Yep.
So one of the things I want to find out is how someone builds a business. First of all, what's the word that you used? So everybody needs to build a team. And I find that that is a big resistance. I was the same. I had a hard time letting go of certain level of perfectionism. Um, and I think it's one of the things that slows us down from reaching whatever our goals would be, whether it's a part-time business that we don't want to dominate the rest of our life, or if we want to have multiple seven-figure studios, we can't do it alone. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think it really comes down to what you want in the end. At the end of the day, everyone's goals are different, and because of that, everyone's path to how they achieve those goals are different. But when it comes to people coming to a crossroads of deciding where they want their business to grow or what they want their future to look like, I think the biggest thing that most photographers need to do is to put the artist brain away for a second, because that's where that narcissistic kind of control kind of comes in, and you get analysis paralysis, and I mean, you go through these fears that nobody's going to be able to do it as well as I can. And that might be true for a while,
Mm,
but when other people get a chance to learn and grow in, and they're shaped and molded in under your direction, they'll eventually be able to do it even half as good as you, and maybe even do it better than you,
hmm
given given the time, trust, and energy. But a lot of artists don't get that, and as solopreneurs, before they move into the entrepreneurial stage, it's like they feel like they can do everything better themselves, but because they're doing everything, they end up doing a lot of nothing. And then that means that even if someone was doing it half as well as them, that would be twice as good as what they were doing it because they couldn't do it all.
right, right. I'm thinking one of the first things that I recommend when I'm coaching somebody, if they're cleaning their own house, is to pay somebody to clean their darn house. 20 to $25 an hour compared to on the average, if we do all the numbers, people should be making $200 to $400 an hour when they're
Mhm.
profitable. So, I mean,
Yep.
besides the fact that housekeepers can clean a lot better than I can because it's not something I love. I love a clean house.
Yep.
I just don't love
Yep.
doing it. But the resistance on even just that, and that is not rocket science. Someone coming in once a week to deep clean and maybe do a few loads of laundry and uh you know just that or some other simple task like data
Yep.
entry or when I um when I have a busy studio going on, uh, big boxes come in with wall portraits. Just having somebody else open the dang boxes. Uh, I love doing framing, make a lot of money doing the framing myself. Having somebody else just staple the thing in and paper it and wire it. Um, yeah. So at what point do you think someone should, I don't like the word should, but we'll just use it anyway. Okay, might strongly consider getting some help, and what kind of help do you recommend when you're coaching people?
I think to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying there, I think it comes down to opening your mind and shifting your perspective. Like, for example, getting someone to clean your house for, $25 an hour, you might say, well, if I do it myself, I'll save $25 an hour. But if you typically, as a profitable photographer, solopreneur, if you're making two, three, $400 an hour in your business, that doesn't mean you're saving $25 an hour. That means it's costing you
Hmm?
175, 200, $300 an hour to do that job yourself. So I think that shift in perspective, when someone might start considering expanding or giving themselves a little bit more freedom is when there's something that they just don't love doing.
Mm,
Like we don't love doing everything, we don't love, not everyone loves shooting and selling and retouching and running the business. I mean, there's elements of any business, no matter how big or how small, that you just don't love. And when you're doing something you don't love, you probably don't do it as well as somebody who thrives on doing this stuff would do. So I think that's kind of the mark when somebody says, I don't love doing this. I think I should just get somebody else to do it. And
mhm.
that's kind of the freedom that solopreneurs and entrepreneurs should be thinking about and have is when does the freedom start?
Ooh, that's a good quote. When does the freedom start? Tell me what your thoughts are on that. Why you,
Well, it's yeah, I love thinking this way because we like you hear about the entrepreneurial lifestyle and how crazy it is and how hectic it is and how you're the first one in and the last one to leave, and you're the hardest working and the lowest paid, and there's so many, great stories about being an entrepreneur, but there's so many not so great ones, and there's so many stigmas about how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. And absolutely, it is so hard. But the hardest part of the game is your own mental struggle on how you navigate the challenges with yourself.
Mm.
And that's where I think, you have to ask yourself, like, when does the freedom start? When do I unbind these shackles that are keeping me in my business 12, 13, 14 hours a day? When do I start, living that freedom? And for me, in my particular scenario, it was really more of an awakening when I was diagnosed with stage 2 thyroid cancer. I had a family, I had a studio, I had all these things. And what really solidified what I was doing for me was when I was able to step away for a couple of months at a time to just go through what I was going through. And the business ran, the
Hmm.
studio ran, were served, the revenue was coming in. And I couldn't do that without having a team.
Mm.
So to anybody out there that's a solopreneur or an artist who, is afraid of giving up certain responsibilities, I would say, listen, you're building a great business for yourself, but when life happens, what happens to your business? What happens to your revenue? What happens to the food on the table for the kids? What happens to, the extracurricular programs that you have to pay for the kids? Like, what happens to all that when life happens to you and you can't be the employee in your studio anymore?
So it sounds like when this happened, and I'm happy to hear you're doing well, right? All is
Yes.
well. Um,
Yep.
you already had things in place. Um,
Yeah.
and so I had a little brain surgery uh, in 2014 because I had a benign tumor in my sinus. And
Mhm.
I found that because it wasn't like sudden, so I could plan. And so I put a lot of things in place. And I had like my best 2 years during that journey because I had to have things automated. I had to have help. So interesting for you to, share the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
I imagine it was a wake-up call for you too. Are there some things that you changed in a big or a small way because of that?
Yeah, I think I really leaned into letting people do more of what they wanted to do and focused less on being somebody who worked in my business as much
Okay.
as I did. I think that was kind of a period where I was like, if I just work on the business, wouldn't that be a better service to everyone on this team, everyone in my company, to build something that's a little bit more sustainable and long term for everybody? So I think that's one of the biggest things that I pivoted to. And I also got a lot more conscious about the bottom line and my numbers. Artists aren't particularly wired to focus on the numbers until they're taught to, and it becomes something that I obsess about because it's important to watch the bottom line. And because I mean, I'm generally a really nice guy and I love my people and I love giving and giving and giving. But if I give too much, I got to be careful because it ends up being, detrimental in the long run, right?
Right.
So I think everything needs to be kind of sustainable when you do things. But I think focusing on the numbers was something that really became more habitual for me,
Mm.
especially when I needed to look at this and say, if I'm not here, what happens to this? And what happens to everybody? What happens to my family? What happens to my team?
Hmm.
If I'm not, how do I? So, being more conscious about the numbers and the profitability and the expenses and the labor costs, that really just solidified that if I can focus on this stuff and get really, really good at it, these people that I love and care about so much are going to be taken care of.
Got it.
And these people are to have jobs longer than I intended, you know? So it's
Uh-huh.
really about securing that opportunity. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing that I might have changed after my experience.
Great. So I have, because there's what you just said, and then I want to go back just a second to asking you to define, let's get that word out,
Yeah.
define working in the business or on the business.
Yep.
What is the difference?
Working in the
Like,
working in the business means you have a role in the business. It means that you are either a studio manager, a photographer, an editor, something that is in the business that you just like that cleaner that you could be paying somebody else to do.
mm-hmm,
So when you're working in the business in a role, you're limited to how much you can scale and grow the business
mm-hmm,
in the sense of time, because you are spending a certain amount of time in a function. Working on the business means that you are the everything is functioning. The business is operating independently of you,
mm,
and your job, your focus is to optimize for efficiency and and recognize opportunities in where you can grow, where you can scale back, and what the future looks like in the sense of your marketing campaigns or um, you know, even just keeping track of your numbers, or even more than anything else, what I love is coaching and training and development.
mm,
And the business is functioning, and I love training. So me working with my people every so often is actually me working on the business. If I didn't do it as a function every single day, the business would work fine. The business would operate fine.
uh-huh,
Nobody grows as quickly, right? And
right,
that's the only difference.
right.
I think the best way I would define it is in the business, you're in a function. On the business, you're working on its future.
So thank you for sharing that. You're um, bringing me way in the Wayback Machine in my life, where there was a point where I could see I had a choice of growing a business in a way that could be highly profitable, where other people are doing the work, or being the photographer and the the person that was, having the fun in my thinking of the creativity. And I decided I didn't want to give up the photography. And so what I saw was that there was a, a requirement that I structure my business in a way. Like, I don't know if you know Jeff Lubin, he was on my show and just recently, a couple of weeks ago, and he has had a high, maybe five figure and sometimes or six figure, sometimes seven figure business. And he remained the photographer. And he
Mhm.
structured it so that he wasn't overworking, but he got to still be
Yep.
the creative one. And that was a choice. It's funny now that you say that, because I do love coaching people. If I today wanted to have a thriving business uh, doing photography in a bigger way, I can see that I would enjoy being the boss and coaching people who are working for me. Now when I
Mhm.
coach, it's people working for themselves pretty much. So, yeah, it was a conscious decision that I made. And it was a decision that limited my income. Um, so, like, how would somebody make that decision? Do you get what I'm talking about? That there's kind of two
Yeah.
roads you can take, and what the
Well,
choices are?
it comes down to what you want, right, Lucy? Like it comes down to like if you want to be a photographer, then build the business around you being the photographer. And you can still work in the business, but just know that scaling the business and working on the business just takes more time out of the day. So I mean, if you were working 4 to 6 hours a day as a photographer, and that's all you had to do. You went in and you photographed the clients and then dumped the files, and then the rest of your team took over from there. That's fine. Then you have a couple hours of your day to focus on the business, and that's where the entrepreneurial kind of spirit comes in. Like most people will put in, more than 8 hours. Like they say the first 8 hours is for survival, and the anything after that is for growth.
Mm.
So it just comes down to what people want to do for themselves. But I mean, for for me, I love being a photographer. And one of the last roles in my studio to give up was the photography and the sales because I loved both just as
Hmm.
equal.
Same.
Yeah, and I have this, it's funny. So I've been competing in image competitions for probably for 10 years now, actually, since 2015. And I have this room in our studio. It's an office and it has a wall of all the awards that we've won in 10 years. And I have another office that has another wall, which is much larger, and it has way more awards on it and recognized portraits and images and photographs on it. And that wall represents 3 months. And it's funny because
Mm.
in the 10 years that it took me to build one wall of award-winning images, when I was working in the business and focused on being an everything or being a photographer and a salesperson and this and that and an entrepreneur, my craft, my creative soul suffered so much. And it took me 10 years to build this wall of excellence. And then when I stepped away and said, my team, the people that love doing what they do in all of these respective areas, are going to take over and do everything, the creative soul in me was ignited because I wasn't bound to a client and what they wanted to shoot or how they wanted things to look. I was free to create.
So your own personal work became more creative because others. Oh,
My own personal work started to exist. Period.
okay. What?
It started to exist. All the ideas that I had in my
Ah,
mind for years, or
ah,
just it started to exist, and then all of a sudden in 3 months we won more awards in 3 months than we did in 10 years. And it just goes to show you that when you have time to sharpen the saw and step back and just do what you love, you thrive.
okay. I get it. I think so. Let me summarize. So when you freed yourself from being a cash cow as a photographer, I shoot this, I get money. I shoot this, I get money. And
Yep.
by the way, when you mentioned, oh, if you want to be the photographer and give the digital files, that's not the business I built. I realized I had to charge really well and get good income in order to support myself as
Mhm.
an artist, business owner, or whatever we call it. But when you freed yourself from the what can be a grind of creating good images people will buy, then you are free to let your own imagination, because you love photography. I'm totally convinced of that gave you the space to be creative for fun, for showing your work to others, for acknowledgments worldwide. And-
Yeah, and not even just for the acknowledgement, but it caused my photography to be born. It caused my work to
ah,
just actually come to fruition and
interesting.
see the light of day.
Interesting. Yeah, I always wonder because in this business, I've been in this business, Andrew, for 1982. And I have gotten what we used to call PPAized, the specially print comp. Back then, it was even harder to get great scores being a little bit outside the box. Now, with digital, there's so much more that people do, but I learned those sellable things. And there's a part of the artist in me that I always wonder what might have I created. I only thought about it like if I didn't have this business, but now what you're mentioning is if I had somebody else going to the beach, photographing families in triangles or holding hands, walking on the surf in silhouette with the sunset. Those are some of my signature shots.
Mhm.
If you're looking on video, you
Yep.
can see this was
Yep.
a lone collection image that really came from my own imagination um, at one point. But anyway, uh, so I love that thought that someone who is a photographer, artist at heart, if you're free from the day-to-day creating excellent sellable images, you can get more of your own style, your own work.
Yeah. You definitely have more options. You
Mhm.
definitely have freedom to grow. You know, some people love serving others. There was a period, one of the hardest parts for me was giving up the photography position in the studio because I just loved seeing the genuine reaction of these clients' faces and
Yes.
the emotion that, when even just seeing the back of the camera after doing a set. And that was something I was worried that was gonna fade and go away and that I would miss it.
Mhm.
But I don't miss it because I was able to duplicate, triplicate myself and
Mhm.
creating more people that could elicit that emotion from more clients. And I I resigned to the fact or I conceded to myself in knowing that I can serve one person at a time. But my team can serve two or three at a time, and that's always going to be two to three times better than what I can do myself.
Mm.
So why be selfish and try to take all that reward for the work that we do all by myself when I can share that amongst a team of people and do more good?
Right. I love that. So, before we started recording, you mentioned that you're a guy that comes from the heart. And
Totally.
our mutual friend Maria would not have suggested you if that wasn't true, because she's all heart. Um,
Yeah.
so you've got that heart for servings, as do I. So the awareness that when you release that, do it all myself and get the joy of the hugs and making people super happy. And in your case, boudoir is your focus
Yep.
in general. So making women feel great about themselves and empowered, and maybe having people that love them see them in a new way, that you're
Mhm.
actually serving more people by being generous enough to not have to do it all yourself. And
Yeah.
plus your employees, your team, uh, they get that joy and they get the income. And so it's like you've got this like backyard full of gold, they'll say, and you're letting more people dig and get the gold and having the benefits than just your own shovel out there. Um, yeah, yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly, I mean, one of the core values that we have as a business is co-prosperity. If
Oh,
we all if one of us wins, we all win. If
I
one of us
love that.
loses, we all lose. So
Oh,
co-prosperity is a big core value in our business, and it's derived from everyone everyone wins, everyone loses, but as long as we all do it together, that's all that matters.
that's awesome. I I'm sure that your team absolutely loves you and their lives
Oh
enhanced.
God, I hope so. I really do.
And if they don't, well, you're not a good match. So I, as someone who has done this as the solopreneur artist, I don't know like, how you would even decide or start a business that is going to scale up to that point. So do you have some tips, some
Yeah,
action steps?
def
Like somebody's like,
definite.
"Hey, I want a seven-figure business with multiple employees. Where do I start and what do I continue to do?" So what are your thoughts on that, Andrew?
Um, I love Simon Sinek's Start with Why, but I also love adding to that by saying start with the end. So Simon Sinek, he says, when you have a purpose and a why, you can work backwards in figuring out the how. And when someone identifies the why they want a seven-figure business, then we can work backwards with the how. So then we go with starting at the end. So if somebody says, I want $1 million studio, all right, let's start with $1 million in mind and let's work it backwards. How much is the average sale that you think you can get per client? Well, I think I can get a $3,000 average.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Working backwards from there, $1 million divided by $3,000 as an average gives you X amount of sessions per year. Take that and divide that by however many weeks you want to operate, 50 weeks, 52 weeks, 40, like whatever you want. And then within that, you'll identify how many sessions a day you need to do. If that number is realistic and attainable for you as an individual, great, go for it. If that number isn't realistic for you as an individual, then consider, what if we hired somebody else to help me do it? Then is it realistic and attainable? So this, I mean, it all comes down to, once you have a purpose and a mission of what you want to do and why you want to do it, then the how behind it is actually just easy to kind of reverse engineer. Most people can do that math and then figure, okay, I need 5 sessions a week, or 10 sessions a week at a $2,000 average, and I'll hit my $1 million over 50 weeks. What they fail to think about is, well, how do I get 10 seats in there every single week?
Mhm.
So that's where the marketing brain needs to come in. And you have to think about all the different avenues of marketing and how that's going to work and operate. And I would also highly encourage people not to think of a seven-figure business as a seven-figure business in the sense of profit.
Right.
That's how much revenue you drive in, right? So be careful of those costs. Be careful of those operating expenses. Be careful of the high labor costs that you might be dishing out, and think about the bottom line in mind. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that in the sense of getting started and how to figure that out. But I think that's probably the best piece of advice I can give in somebody that's thinking about this.
Okay. So figure out, like, to me, $3,000 a client for quality work, finding leads that have high potential, is reasonable. So if I do the math on a million but divided by 3,000, um, that's going to be a certain number, and I divide that by, let's say, 50 weeks. Um, so then it's like, how do you find those people? And then what I'm also, you might have said this or it just might be in my thoughts, but how are you going to serve those people? So in the situation with Jeff Lubin, uh, I'm guessing he does maybe 5 sessions a week, and he does them in his studio, and he has a very efficient sales system. So he's able to manage uh, what he's doing for that, high ticket. And I'm sure he is mindful of his costs in that. Somebody like me who loves to do outdoor photography and on location, that would be very difficult to do one a week or five a week without help. Uh,
Yep.
even even if I was only doing the shooting, I don't like that word, the photographing, the grading, then I
Mhm.
would need a lot of help um, in the sales, in the production, in the marketing, in all of those things. So that's where it
Yep.
seems pretty natural to say, okay, to do that in my current situation, I would need a bigger space. I would need at least one other person to photograph, and then probably two or three uh, people to help with all the other kinds of things at a minimum. Does that sound like a starting point for someone that's like,
Yeah,
this
I think
goal? What do I need initially to start moving towards that?
I think that is a good plan. I think the best way to start is deciding which job you don't want first,
Right.
right? And that'll give you guidance on what direction to hire first. I
Hmm.
don't love sales. Then sales is the first thing you need to hire. I
Right.
don't love the photography. Well, then the photography is the first thing you need to hire. So that's the direction. But a little bit of a cautionary type of advice that I would give is don't scale too fast.
Yes, I was wanting to ask you about that.
Yeah, go grow, grow within your means because not only you're doing something probably for the first time, you're going through a lot of new experiences, new challenges, and you'll need time to learn and navigate how to do that. And you need to give yourself permission to fail. You
Mm.
need to give yourself, um, you know, a little bit of rope, and a little bit of a longer leash when it comes to, you know, I mean, artists, I mean, we're perfectionists and we love things a certain way. But when it comes to being a business owner, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it in its own self is an art form and
Yes.
you're learning something new. So just like when you picked up your first camera, if you picked up your first DSLR and nobody told you what all these buttons and settings and, meant, it would take you some time to figure it out. So
Mhm.
starting a new venture and scaling your business in itself is like picking up a new camera. It's going to take you time to understand how to work all the elements. So give yourself a little bit of grace, give yourself a little bit of time and be patient. Don't be so eager to grow so fast.
Ah, so what I hear in that, I'll just check and see if this is what you mean. Uh, Giving myself permission to fail doesn't
Mhm.
mean to crash and burn the business and go bankrupt. It means having the space to have things not work, but still have things continue to function. It's like
Mhm.
I've said that I would never hire a wedding photographer that hadn't done 50 weddings because I think having done 500 at least early in my career, there's at least
Yep.
50 things that can go wrong. And so
Yep.
I would either learn from myself or my friends. That's another reason to have what do we call it? A community because like I pre cell phones and things, the one situation we met for the pre-bridal portraits before the wedding, and she had not told me she changed the wedding venue. And it's only the photo gods that when I said, now the church is here and here, right? And they're like, and no, we're going to that church in La Jolla. So I learned from that and I told all my friends, double check the day before. Um, so I was set up and other colleagues where we could have, uh, you know, mistakes that weren't the end of the world, even though it was awful to not have film for some of the formals of a bride once in the in the camera. Nobody died. It's not, I used to always say it's not brain surgery, but after having that, I'm like, even that we get through. So am I right on that, that the space to fail and trying new things is a, you're suggesting we don't go so fast into it that then a mistake can be like the end of everything. Is that what I'm
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and to kind of clarify, I mean, you go at your own pace.
right?
Some people faster than others, some people don't, but go at your own pace, but don't be afraid or don't be discouraged if that pace is slower than you anticipated,
Uh,
because you are learning a new skill. You are learning a you're learning to flex a new muscle. And I want to speak to failure again, because I actually, in hearing you kind of clarify what I was saying, I don't even know if I would call it failures. I
right.
more so, if anything, opportunities. Like,
Hmm.
a failure could be looked at as an opportunity, and an opportunity, if harnessed correctly, is the best way to grow, is
Mm,
the fastest way to, right? So the more mistakes you make and the more opportunities you take to learn from those mistakes, the faster the outcome will be for you.
got it. And if you don't make them, like my first business was running a in, travel insurance and currency exchange in the San Diego airport.
Mhm.
And it was given to me. I was working at the business and they changed it to independent contractor. It was my business. And my first person I hired me.
Mhm.
Learned if I, because I needed a team of about 6 people,
Yep.
and I didn't need another me. I needed uh like I always hired a Virgo. I don't know if any of
Mhm.
that matters, but it seemed like they always would like put things away, put the pencils with the erasers all in the same uh direction. And yeah, I and it was fun. Gosh, I'm having all these putting all these things in place. I mean, I did create a team and I loved coaching people on how to sell. I'd never had any training, but I was always just a natural salesperson, and it was very exciting to see them thrive. So I guess I had it
Yep.
in me all along, like Dorothy. It was
Yep.
in you
Got it.
all along.
All the It's
All
right
along.
there.
I needed you to coach me back then, but I don't know if you were even born. I don't know how old you are. So
I was born. I was
in the
born.
80s, in the late
Yeah.
70s,
Not,
80s.
yeah, I was born, but not old enough to coach you.
Right. So, all right. So you say, so I'm going to do a little recap and see if there's anything else. So you start with the end in mind. So,
Yep.
um, and figure out what you want to sell and how much you can earn. Watch your numbers. Um, and you've got to figure out marketing to get those people that will invest in that in. Um, and watch not just the numbers of your hard costs, but it's going to cost you to have people working for you. Don't scale too fast. Let yourself grow and learn not just the things you do well, but the things that you realize, oh, I could do that better. Um,
Yep.
Embrace business as an art form. Be patient because, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, anything else on how to uh, grow in a way that is solid and doesn't put you at risk for some very unhappy disaster.
Yeah. Have fun with it.
Ah,
Don't don't forget to have fun. It's a journey. It's an experience. It truly is something that, if you embrace it and welcome it for all of its teachings and everything it has to offer, this can be one of the most incredible rides you can
Mm,
ever put yourself on. So don't forget to have fun and enjoy the ride and the process because it's not the big bank account at the end that makes it worth it. It's like like they say it's very cliche, but it's not the destination, it's the journey.
hmm
I can't stress enough how true that is, especially when you're going through the thick of it, to just take a step back and enjoy it. When Tony Robbins says, when I was at a Tony Robbins thing, he said to me, when something bad happens, I don't say the F word. I say a different F word, and he said, I say fascinating,
mm,
fascinating,
mm,
right? And it just puts your mind in a different perspective and shifts your mindset to just say, okay, the world is crumbling down. Fascinating. All right.
mm,
What are we taking from this? And people will start to see when they shift their mindsets what I'm talking about. But all I can say is enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride and never forget to ask yourself, when does the freedom start?
mm. You have me wishing I could do this life all over again and rent a space outside of my home and set those goals, like remembering that I did for 5 years, I did have a team because there was no choice. I couldn't and wouldn't want to have uh, stayed at that counter from the out 6 in the morning till 11 at night because that's when the airport uh, had customers for us, and it was fun. It was already set up, so I didn't have to start from scratch with it. But I can see that from what you say, I could have had a lot of fun managing a business and choosing to do photography or not, but being able to reach more people. Because for me, photographing kids and families in a way that bring people joy and connect their heart and um, comfort you when people pass on or the little babies become graduates and parents themselves. So, yeah, is there a way to do a do-over? I I don't know. Maybe
There's
that's
there's always there's always time. I mean,
uh,
you're still here, you're still kicking. There's no
yeah.
time like the present.
Yeah, it's a desire and the energy for it, but yeah, you've really inspired me to not only think about things in a new way, but also when I'm coaching photographers, uh, imagine that my own inexperience and thoughts on that have kept like a gap in in how, and I've had lots of people have the kind of success they want from coaching, but having that extra little piece, you've made it so clear, Andrew. And I hear it's not about the money, and yet that is a fun part, right? I'm sure it's really nice to know that you're providing for yourself, your family, your retirement, that there you have a
But
level of
also,
income that gives you some freedom.
yep,
Also, what?
yep. Also my team, providing for the team and
Yes,
the people, my studio family, right?
yes. That I'm just going back to you and the
Hmm.
gratification of having a healthy income, because I'm sure that out of that $1 million, you're not spending 999,000, that you get to keep some. And
There was a time where I would do that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Why was that? And what changed?
Um, I mean, in business, it's not about what you make, it's about what you save. It's about the
Right.
profitability.
Hmm.
It's about the bottom line, right? Um, a lot of people, when they come into a lot of money, focus on where to spend that money.
Right.
right? They're not used to having that kind of abundance. So,
Ah,
I'm as guilty about that than anybody. When, when you go through feast and famine and then all of a sudden you get into a situation where you have an exorbitant amount of money that you're not used to having, you think about, where do I spend it? What do I do with it? And
mm,
then when you see how much you're left with at the end of the day, and you say, well, I made $1 million, but I only have this left, then that's kind of when it starts coming into perspective for you, and you start thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't spend as much. Maybe I should utilize my money better. Maybe I should find ways how to make my profit work for me, by way of investments or things like that. And that's when that hard pill, starts to take effect. But um, like I said, everyone's got their own journey. That was mine,
uh-huh.
but now with our studio, I think we'll probably close out this year at around 3.5 million, as a studio. And that's, I'm so grateful. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that, we have a team that is able to build that. And I honestly, I take no credit at all for what this team is doing.
Wow.
I take, the only credit I take is that I found and hired this team. All I did was put them together, but they work cohesively as a group,
Oh,
as a team of people who, thrive on serving the women in our community.
mm.
And I'm so grateful for that.
So I have two thoughts on that, and I do love your heart for that. Okay. And now that I've said that, both thoughts are kind of fluttering around like butterflies in my head. Um,
Catch them.
Working on it. Okay. So I added to my list that it is important to learn how to manage income, not just the managing the money, you know, salaries and products and marketing, but the income that comes in. Like they've found that people who win the lottery, most of them end up broker than when they won because they didn't learn how to put that away. My money manager, financial advisor, complimented me the other day as we were moving and shifting some money around, and I I inherited a little bit from my mom passing, and he's like, You don't realize how conscientious you are compared to a lot of people who get an inheritance and they end up spending it all." And so I'm hearing from you that if we are in a position where a lot of do re mi is coming through our hands, being conscientious, being wise, being good stewards of that, um, is also an important part of having a seven-figure
Mhm.
business, is not
Yep.
only making sure that there's profit in that, but then the income that we're getting personally, it's wise to learn because it's a skill too to learn how to invest or save or like how many houses and cars and yachts do you need? um, all that thing, all that. So I forget the second part. So we'll just if it flutters back in my brain. Um, so I have one quick practical question. Your thoughts on this?
Go
So
for it.
when
Sure.
I'm working with a client to do a simple business plan, um, on the whole, I find that people who are um, working steadily, making good income in this business and are priced for profit, keep about a third. Um,
Mhm.
and we do a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. And a lot of times my clients will, at the 5 year, have the vision of a business where they've hired other people and they're wanting to bring in seven figures or high six figures. And I don't know if that keeping a third average is generous or that that a seven-figure business is the expenses on the average are going to be higher dollar for dollar than if you're, let's say, an entrepreneur bringing in 200,000 a year and you've got, maybe another part-time photographer and someone that, so you've got like three people. Thoughts on that? Is it more expensive to run,
No.
or is there higher profit because a lot of your hard costs aren't going up? Thoughts on that?
So it's a bit of a sliding scale. So as a solopreneur, as an individual photographer, your profit should be closer to 50% or more. I have a friend who, she's in the 80% profit margin, but she does everything herself, every
Hmm.
single thing. She's very selective with the clients that she works with. She's very, high value in the products and pricing that she set out for herself. And then for the majority, I think realizing a 40 to 50% profit margin is actually quite healthy and quite realistic when you're an entrepreneur when you're a solo photographer kind of doing this on your own, where people lose a lot in their profitability at that level is when they are investing in costs of goods that are too high, or their marketing efforts are more expensive than what they need to be. And that's when you might dip into getting closer to 40, 30%. But when you're scaling a business, it's almost through efficiency, um, predictable to have 30% profit,
Hmm.
because it strictly comes down to how many people you're hiring and having. So what I do is I kind of segment it out into um, expenses, labor, and profit. Actually, I do labor, expenses, profit. And so it's LEP. So I got my LEP, my labor, I have a cap 30%. That's my cap. Okay.
Mm.
Now, expenses and profit are where I get to play and where I really get to figure out how good I am at running a business, coaching my people, and becoming efficient as a business owner. The expenses portion also includes my cost of goods. So I
Hmm.
have to keep that in mind. So
Right.
if my cost of goods expenses are 40%, then I've got 30% profit left over. If my expenses and cost of goods are 30%, then I've got 40% profit, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where you can play. So I think when you're scaling, it's a little bit more predictable um, to work your profit margin when you kind of use that LEP type of system. Um, but where people start losing is when the expenses are high and the
Hmm.
labor is high.
Right.
And that's what in my first $1 million year, I realized was that I just I blew all the money on people and
Mm.
expenses.
So you
Right.
want to be really
So
mindful of what what you're spending so that there's money left over. I mean, maybe when
totally.
you're first scaling and you're making some investments and you
Yep.
know, studio rental or purchase or and equipment and all of that, there might be a time when you got to spend more than you make and coaching and those kinds of
Yep.
things. So, well, oh my gosh, Andrew, this has been such an enlightening and inspiring conversation. And I know people that are listening that maybe have never thought about the joy of not being the primary photographer. Um, you know, like I can hear all over the world, little explosions in people's brains. So I have two questions. One, if people want to get in touch with you, ask you questions, find out about your coaching, where would they go?
So my coaching is predominantly focused on sales, helping people with bookings and in-person sales.
Hmm.
But Anybody can reach me by email, which is andrew@fablestudios.ca. Instagram is great. I'm Andrew underscore images. And yeah, people can reach out to me on Facebook anytime. Andrew Hiorth.
Great, great. And Yort is spelled H-I, let's see. How's it spelled,
H
Andrew?
Hiorth.
Yes, good. You said good Norwegian word. Is there a lot of
You got it.
Norwegians in Canada, in Toronto?
Oh, I'm sure there's tons. Toronto is a melting pot of culture, so
Oh, so much.
I'm sure there's tons. But
Yeah.
me personally, I'm half Filipino and half Norwegian.
Ah,
So when they see the last name, they're like, "You don't look Filipino, or you don't, your last name doesn't look Filipino, but you totally look Filipino."
yes.
So I
So you're
get that a lot.
Norwegian right?
Norwegian Pino, yep.
Or no,
Philowegian.
no, I think Philowegian. I think I like Norwegian Pinot. It sounds like food. Okay.
Filipino.
Yes. So last, with the side of pancit or lumpia, we have lots of Filipinos
Yeah.
in San Diego, so I know
Oh, yes.
all the good
Absolutely.
foods. All
Yep.
right. So either is there something, this is your opportunity to either share something that you would be like, oh man, I wish I had remembered to share that, or just a parting thought.
Yeah, I think when it comes to thinking about your business and going through the process of deciding whether you do it or don't do it or how to do it and how quickly to do it, I think it just comes down to asking the question, you know, can I build a trainable, repeatable process that can run independently of me? And if so, will I be happy with that?
Mm,
Because that is the ultimate question that you need to ask yourself. Can I build a trainable, repeatable system that can run independently of me? And will I be happy with that?
I love it.
And that will answer the artist brain,
Hmm.
that will answer the business brain, that will answer a lot of questions. But also in that question, there's a lot of hints there for success.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Andrew. Everyone stay tuned after I bid him so long. My little
Well,
quick wrap
adieu.
up. Adieu. It's French, and you live near those. Is Ontario? Yeah, it's in the French province, correct?
Quebec is the next province over, and that's
Oh,
the
yeah,
French
yes,
province.
yes. I've
But
been to
yes,
Quebec City. Oh my God, it is so gorgeous. Okay, so
beautiful.
Andrew, thank you so much. I'm
You're so welcome.
been inspired and I can feel your heart all the way from here. So really
Awesome.
grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for the time and giving me an opportunity to share.
You're welcome.
Very welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. So hey, here I am again. Hello. Um, wasn't he just so smart and so nice and all the things? Um, so let's see if I can do some summary. Um, I love his question of when does the freedom start? So thinking about why we're doing this is not to work ourselves into the ground. And so potentially you can build a business that can run without you. It's very interesting. The people that are the most wealthy are not doing the work. The heads of Apple Computer, Steve Jobs didn't build the millions of iPhones. He got help. So anyway, um, we talked about how to get a seven-figure business. And he said, and I'm just going to go quick with this, start with your why first. And then put the end in mind and work backwards. Figure out how many clients you can serve and for that amount and the average sale, and then figure out how to market to find those people. And then figure out what you need to put in place in your business to do that. You want to be careful of the costs because you can be bringing in a lot of money and not keeping a lot of money. And he also talked about being careful to learn as you go and not go so fast that you miss the opportunities to have failures that are not disasters that you can learn from. And think of business as an art form. I just love that. Be patient, keep learning, learn how to manage the profits that you make so you actually get, uh, you know, the savings and the lifestyle you want, and then have fun with it. I love that. He says people need to be very conscious of the bottom line. And then his parting thought is decide what you want to do and how to do it. And then will you be happy with that? Will that satisfy you? So thanks for tuning in again. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for subscribing. That's the word. And that's it for now. Bye.